So the work today is to ask some questions. What's that all about? Where's it coming from? What does it do to you? It's not just simply a one-way dialogue, which is simply, well, I don't feel that way. I remember once dealing with about 600 Unitarians, and when I walked in, I said, I'm really scared. I'm the only Chinese person. I'm the only two people of color in the whole room. And one woman yelled up, but you're amongst friends. And I looked at her and I said, I don't even know you. So we like to make people feel comfortable because we're comfortable. So today, part of this journey is that, as Virginia Satir said, we do not see the world as it is, but rather who we are. So we see it through our lens. In her world, with 600 of her other friends, she's comfortable, making the assumption that John must be comfortable, I must be comfortable. So the work is to come outside of ourselves to try and understand what it is the other person's going through. And maybe what's really, in many ways, perfect that we're starting off this way today is because Joe had something he wanted to share with you and was afraid to. But before he does that, I think it's really important for you to hear why he was hesitant to tell even us. So this is part of Joe's walking through his fear. What do you notice on his label today? Scared. So just noticing that. He's actually telling you. It's a very vulnerable feeling to tell people about, isn't it? As you look at each of yours. So Joe, what were you scared about?
There would be normally an interruption about this time because I'm on medication. I'm on medication for the rest of my life. I have a condition that is heavily stigmatized, that I've had faculty members roll their eyes at me when I sit and try to explain to them what's going on. In April 2006, I was diagnosed HIV positive. A month later, that diagnosis was upgraded to an AIDS diagnosis. I have tried to talk with some fellow students on my campus, and I get the scoot away thing, and the thing that kills me the most is that they are a greater threat and a danger to me than I will ever be to them. It's a nightmare. It's a living, bloody nightmare. Especially when you catch something. God, 2 years ago, I went to our health clinic because I had lost my appetite for 2.5 weeks. My body had actually begun to consume itself. I could hardly breathe. I was immediately shipped to the ER, chest x-ray, and it's pneumonia, but it's a bacterial pneumonia that most people can just fight off. And for a healthy person, oh, I have the flu, well, that can kill me. And it's being a student, it's so much more difficult because you're exposed to people day in and day out. And it is terrifying to know that I could catch something on a college campus, yet my education is important. Anyway, I'm gonna shut up now because it's been like...
Do you need some water?
I get pre-head. Floater first.
So what I'd like you to not turn away, but take a good look at John. At one moment as he's sitting here, and I'm sure that a number of you can relate to, is wondering, now I've shared this, I wonder what everybody's thinking. It's not about turning the page, let's begin the lesson now that he's taken his pills. Notice how he's having to adapt to what he anticipates we might be thinking. Not just worrying about himself, but then worrying about how we think of him. Jonathan talked about it too, is I'm wondering what they're thinking. I have to think about that. You're also hearing about the rolling of the eyes when he's trying to bring it up. And for those of you that might have heard about people with AIDS, now you get to see a face, don't you? It's not like over here. So who would like to share with Joe, how did it feel to have him share this with us, with you? Will?
For me, just hearing a story, the thing that was...
You talk to him.
That was difficult for me was trying to figure out what to say. I was very terrified of saying the wrong thing. I was just trying to figure out a very simple way of saying, just because at first, just to be honest, the whole stigma in my head was going and stuff. But in reality, at the end of all that, and it was very small, all that, You know, I was left with like Joe, and I was left with like my experiences with you previously, and like even though they were small, so it's just like I was struck with how little that mattered to me in terms of like my relationship with you, and like how it's just like, oh, you know, just like another part of Joe. But yeah, also being grateful of like being in the presence of your bravery, being able to say that in front of us and trusting us enough to say that. Yeah.
So you see how that's important, what is he putting this? That this part of him, though, it is very important to Joe. At the same time, it does not diminish all of his goodness, all of his beauty, all that he brings. And maybe the great fear, and maybe it's also very warranted because it happens, is the moment I tell you, then all of who I am, all the beautiful parts, diminish next to that. Right. And perhaps maybe even are no longer as important in your eyes.
I just want to tell you that I'm so angry. If you said that sometimes you want to smack people, I want to just punch them in the face for giving you a hard time or judging you or rolling their eyes on you. What were they thinking? Like, how can you do such a thing, you know? I want to like yell at them, what's wrong with you? You cannot do that. They cannot do that to you. This is inhuman. This is wrong.
I feel your pain, and I wanted to thank you so much for sharing your experience, sharing what you have gone through, giving to the world and giving to people that although you have the diagnosis, that does not mean the end of your life, that you do have a lot to accomplish. And sometimes I really wish that we have people like you who are out there to give a voice, and thank you so much for sharing your experience.
Thank you for being brave enough to talk about it. Thank you for trusting us, but thank you for trusting yourself enough to know that you can handle talking about this. I'm really proud that you take this opportunity to share it and to talk about the challenges, especially being on a college campus where people don't care. They don't care about the individuals. They don't care about the challenges. So thank you.
I couldn't help but think, like, you can understand how I'm feeling, and I can understand how you're feeling, because you're talking about the indifference, you know, people rolling their eyes and stuff. But also, I think if you know what it feels like, and I don't know how to word this right, for people to think that you're expendable, I can understand what that's like. For people to say, oh, well, you know, he doesn't need disabled services because he's not going to be around anyway much longer. And so, just like writing you off. You know, he's not going to be here. Let's just push him on to the next person.
And how's that familiar for you?
I think people think that, you know, I'm not going to be in class much longer, or, you know, you're not going to be here much longer, so why do we need to care about you anyway? You know? It's going to take you 3 weeks. Drop date's going to come, you're going to drop the class.
Well, another thing that came up to me is, oh, well, he's just another angry black man.
Right.
Just another angry gay man.
And the other thing I was thinking is, like, you know, what must it have been like to go from kind of being normal to now you're oppressed? Because you are not an oppressed person, you know. That this is what it means, you know. You don't have that type of privilege anymore.
So I want you to notice that people are sharing that even as they're listening to Joe's story, they're seeing similarities in their own lives. And he says Joe is listening to your stories. He's also thinking of similarities that go on for him. This kind of interconnectedness of the same kind of feelings, the impact. Yeah. Yes, Leif.
Growing up in this country, I believe that it is a strong, and I grew up with it, is a strong phobia against people with HIV. And that you're taught growing up that it's dangerous and that they could give it to you just by being around them. Even though I know that you're not dangerous to me and that I know you because I've gotten to spend this time with you, but you still have those feelings inside that you can't help because that's what you grew up with. But you still have to acknowledge that they're there, and that And I don't really know how to say this, but I just wanted to say thank you for sharing that.
And by the way, it's even harder when you never get to meet those people.
Exactly.
Or they see them from a distance and don't have a relationship. But for people to get to see the courage not only it takes, but also what happens when we force folks like Joe to be in silence, to stay silent about it, to live a double life.
Thank you,
And then
Joe.
also, yes. And I love what you said, Liv, about the idea that there's these two tapes going on. One that you have all fed into you, and then there's this other tape that's questioning it, that doesn't feel this way. And so they're always going to constantly be on. I think this country is in 500 years of don't ask, don't tell. So we just keep shoving all these images without asking questions, getting to know the person. Remember what we said, we do not see the world as it is, but rather who we are in our world. And as some of you are hearing these stories today, that it is outside your world, and it's your decision to whether or not you want to hear what's outside of your world.
Well, and that's why that tape that's running through your head that tells you how to feel about someone with HIV is so damaging, because if you don't meet Joe and you don't meet somebody like that, that becomes a permanent perception.
Well, and you know, I do understand, because I have the same, the socialized tape for black men. I know where my prejudices lie, and I still have to challenge them. I was walking home in my hometown this last spring. Black dude, kind of about Will's build, hoodie on, walking towards me, and my first thing is panic. Oh my God, I'm gonna get mugged, stabbed, something. I start moving towards the bike lane so I can run across the street if I need to. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Walked right by him, said good evening. He's like, hey, how's it going? And it's like, you know, that was the key moment for me when I realized that I had been programmed to respond to different ethnicities and etc. in a certain way. And if I may be blunt, is bullshit. And I need to stop and look at that. Because as much as I try to say, I'm not racist, oh yes I am, and I need to do it. I need to do the work inside so I can understand how my biases have been formed, so that I can go, this is crap, challenge my own biases, and actually unlearn the racism.
Program in your head the judgments in all of these scenarios that happen to you. And so each time you want to protect yourself more and more and more. And when you said that, it brought me to tears, because I'm thinking any one of us could have been in your situation, because AIDS doesn't discriminate. And I'm thinking, you know, I'm guilty for possibly getting it myself, and it could have been me. And so you're now my second person that I get to know, and so I thank you for the risk, because that goes along with everything that I think we're stemming from, is being able to take that risk and being able to feel it and thinking, oh my God, that could have been me, or it can be me one day. And I'm really sorry about all those people, and I can't apologize for everybody, but it's based out of fear about that. Yeah, you know, I think that's where the anger stems from. When I heard you last night talking, I was wondering where that anger was stemming from. But now I get you.
And I'm just thinking that you're so young. And you don't deserve to have such a life-threatening disease.